What would you do? Discover the incredible, life-changing moment that touches hearts. Drama Love. The diner was buzzing with the scent of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. The kind of place where laughter echoed like a warm hug. Sarah, her hair pulled back and a smile brightening her face, served her regulars who were like family. At 32, life had already thrown her several curveballs, but nothing could dim her spirit. Each morning, she juggled her job at the Maplewood Diner with the responsibility of raising Danny and Lily, her two kids who filled her heart to the brim. Their giggles and sweet hugs created a ball of warmth that melted her worries away if only for a moment. But then there were those dark clouds, bills piled up like fallen leaves in autumn, suffocating her dreams. She felt like a tightrope walker, balancing between her two jobs, clutching onto hope while fighting off despair. Just as she poured coffee for her last table of the morning, her heart sank deeper than usual. That cloudy afternoon, she found herself at the local library, sipping on a lukewarm cup of coffee. Flipping through the pages of the Maplewood Gazette, she came across an article that made her stomach churn. Mr. Thompson, her neighbor and the kindest soul she knew, was facing foreclosure. His cheerful booming laugh echoed in her memory, mixed with the stories of his courageous service as a veteran. Sarah's chest tightened as she read the words detailing his struggle with insurmountable medical bills. Here was a man who fought for his country, now fighting against a mountain of debt. Suddenly, her own daily battles felt trivial in comparison. The weight of his struggle gnawed at her heart. She couldn't just stand by and watch a good man lose his home. Something had to be done. Driven by an overwhelming sense of responsibility, Sarah decided to organize a fundraiser at the diner. "Let us come together," she announced to friends and fellow regulars. The warmth in the diner took on an urgency, the buzz of community love palpable in the air. But then she noticed unsettling whispers flitting through the crowd. Murmurs of old controversies from Mr. Thompson's past began to surface, skewering his character. The charm of the small town seemed to shatter like glass. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the date of the fundraiser inched closer, doubt took root among her friends. Faces that were once bright with friendliness now wore frowns, uncertain glances darting like shooting stars. Sarah wrestled with her fears. Could she dare to defend a man when opinions were so sharply divided? Then came the town hall meeting, with Sarah standing tall amid the rising tension. She fought for Mr. Thompson, her heart racing, passion igniting her words. "Does one mistake erase a lifetime of bravery?" she shouted, her voice quaking. As silence fell, the question hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder that the town stood on the brink of judgment. The flicker of hope within her seemed to fade, leaving only the lingering doubt: could they all come together, or would fear eclipse their compassion? It beat like a drum in her chest. The truth of community and resilience swayed like leaves in the wind. As the clock ticked down, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if redemption was still possible. Would compassion prevail, or would the shadows inch closer, forever changing the fabric of their town? The town hall meeting ended in a cacophony of murmurs and shuffling feet. In the dimly lit room, Sarah stood at the podium, heart pounding, still echoing the fervor of her words. She could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing against her chest as she looked out at her friends and neighbors, their faces clouded with doubt. Mr. Thompson's fate felt intertwined with her own. She had made a gamble, one that could fracture their close-knit community. As people filed out, their hushed conversations wrapped around her like a shroud. She caught snippets of fear and disdain. Doesn't he deserve help?" one voice said. "Who knows what he did?" another added. A chill washed over Sarah, gnawing at her resolve. Her mind flashed back to the laughter of Danny and Lily, their innocence locked away from the world's harsh judgments. But then, amidst the ordinary chatter, one familiar voice rang out. It was Mrs. Jenkins, her elderly neighbor who often reminisced about her late husband, a decorated veteran himself. "Sarah," she called, stopping her in her tracks. "You speak from the heart, child. Don't let them shake your spirit." We can't discard someone without hearing their story. With her warm smile and shaky hands wrapped around her cane, Mrs. Jenkins embodied the heart of the community. Her words sparked a flicker of hope within Sarah, momentarily illuminating the darkness. "Thank you," Sarah replied softly, the warmth of Mrs. Jenkins's kindness settling over her like a comfortable blanket. "I just wish I could make them see." As the weeks passed, flyers advertising the fundraiser hung like banners of hope across town. The diner, once a petite haven of love, transformed into a war room for compassion. Sarah poured every ounce of her energy into organizing the event. Baked goods piled high and local musicians agreed to play, all eager to help their neighbor. But still that subtle murmur of dissent lingered in the air, like a cloud ready to burst. The night of the fundraiser arrived, the diner pulsing with excitement and uncertainty. Sarah glanced around, taking in the familiar faces, friends and foes alike. The scent of comfort food wafted through the air, intertwining with the nervous energy sparking beneath the surface. Would they come together, or were they too divided by his past choices? As the evening unfolded, Sarah watched the crowd ebb and flow. Laughter and music mingled with anxious glances and crossed arms. It felt like a delicate ballet between unity and division. Then, just as the tension climbed, Mr. Thompson arrived. Dressed in his Sunday best, he looked every bit the hero she knew him to be. The room fell silent, tension thickening like fog. "Thank you for coming," he said, emotion cracking his voice. "It means the world to me." His vulnerability rippled through the space. Some faces softened while others remained stony. It was a singular moment of truth that dared to peel back the layers of prejudice. As he recounted his story, words tumbling forth like a river, Sarah noticed Mrs. Jenkins nodding along, her eyes glistening. It was a powerful reminder that the stories we share can reshape perspectives. Yet, the question loomed, would it be enough to break the barriers they had built? As the night wore on, conversations sparked, and laughter began to rise. For every voice that questioned Mr. Thompson's worthiness, there seemed to be another that echoed Sarah's belief in redemption. Hope played its hand again, weaving through the once skeptical crowd. But amidst the flicker of optimism, shadows lurked close by. As Mr. Thompson finished his speech, a newcomer stepped forward, someone whose mere presence sent a wave of discomfort rippling through the crowd. With a determined face and icy resolve, they intended to unveil a truth no one expected. What would this mean for Sarah's effort to unite the town? And would she be prepared to defend not just Mr. Thompson, but her own vision of community? The glimmer of hope flickered against the looming shadow of revelation. Would they stand brave together, or would the community's fragile bonds shatter one more time? The din of the diner fell to a hush as the newcomer stepped forward, cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. Sarah's stomach knotted as she watched them approach the makeshift stage where Mr. Thompson had just poured his heart out. It was Danny's father, Rick. His presence felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rick began, his voice steady yet tinged with something darker. "I have something to say about Mr. Thompson that you all deserve to hear." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The tension in the room could be cut with a knife. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. She had fought so hard to build this moment of connection, and now the very foundation felt ready to crumble. Rick's eyes burned with intensity as he continued. "You all want to know why people are questioning why we should help a man like him. Well, let me remind you. This is the same man who once cost my brother his life." Gasps echoed throughout the diner. Chairs squeaked as those nearest leaned in, hungry for details. Sarah's heart sank. She could see the expression on Mr. Thompson's face shift from gratitude to a pained recognition of Rick's anger. "He made a choice," Rick pressed on, voice rising, "a choice that shattered my family. How can we turn a blind eye to that?" Sarah felt the room closing in on her. The very air thickened with uncomfortableness. People exchanged side-eye glances, wrestling with doubt and anger. She could practically see several walls being built in front of each person. But she couldn't allow that. She had started this journey believing in redemption. As the murmurs grew louder, she stepped forward, catching Mr. Thompson's eye. There was fear there, fear of judgment, fear of the past. "Rick," she said, unclenching her fists by her sides, finding her voice. "What Mr. Thompson did, it might have been a mistake. But aren't we all more than our mistakes?" Rick shot her a look of disbelief, but Sarah pressed on. "We all have a choice to love, to forgive. You lost someone, and that's a pain no one should endure. But in punishing him now, in rejecting him, we only perpetuate that pain. We have a choice too. The room was charged. Emotions danced around like illuminated fireflies. A war between forgiveness and resentment loomed overhead. Silence hung heavily, waiting for someone to act first. Finally, she caught Mrs. Jenkins' eye across the room. With shaky but determined grace, she stood up, reaching for her cane only to drop it as she took a step forward. Child, you speak words of wisdom. We must be a sanctuary for those in need, not a courtroom judging their past. We all deserve a second chance. Can we not offer Mr. Thompson a new beginning? And just like that, the tide began to shift. A few heads began to nod. Some people murmured, whispers of agreement rising. Yet Rick remained resolute, fists still clenched by his side. You defend him after what he did? Sarah leaned into the moment, her voice steady. It's not about defending the past, but nurturing the future. If we don't let him stand with us now, who are we truly serving? The diner, once filled with heartache, suddenly held a spark of hope, the flames flickering, battling against the shadows. But there was still a storm brewing. Would the pushback from Rick and others continue to tear them apart? This isn't over, Rick warned, his voice a harsh whisper, slicing through the warmth of the moment. As his glare bore into hers, doubt crept into Sarah's mind once more. She felt the challenge hanging in the air, heavy and ominous, like a storm that refused to pass. Would love be strong enough to pull them through this divide? Or would it leave them battling remnants of the past? Sarah took a deep breath, realizing this was just the beginning of a battle she never anticipated. What revelations await around the corner? And what truths will emerge from the shadows? The diner was thick with tension, a live wire humming beneath the surface. Sarah could feel its pulse. The people around her held their breath, uncertain of which way the wind would blow. She scanned the faces in the crowd, searching for support, finding it in the nods of a few. But Rick's stormy presence loomed overhead, relentless. Every story deserves to be heard, she said, trying to keep her voice calm and steady. If we shun Mr. Thompson because of the past, are we any better than the mistakes we claim to despise? Rick stepped closer, his expression hardened, eyes flashing with grief and rage. And what about Danny? What about the family torn apart? You think he gets a free pass? The weight of his words felt like a sledgehammer, but Sarah found herself standing even taller. No one's getting a free pass, she replied firmly, her heart racing. But healing can't happen in isolation. If we truly want to honor Danny's memory, wouldn't we want to create a better world? One built on understanding? A ripple of chatter edged through the diner, each mumble a spark of hope and despair. Mr. Thompson, standing behind her with hands trembling at his sides, looked as if he might crumble at any moment. Everyone here has suffered, Mrs. Jenkins interjected, her voice warm yet edged with urgency. Even Rick. But the essence of community is compassion, not just for the innocent but also for those who've erred. We are all on a journey. Rick shook his head, rage flaring in his eyes. You want to forgive him? Fine. But just know that doesn't change what he did. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. Sarah interjected softly. Frees us from it. The word slipped from her mouth like a prayer, heavy with fervor. A few patrons nodded while others looked away, wrestling with their own battles. The din of silverware clinking and plates clattering mixed with the murmurs of uncertainty, creating a symphony of conflict. Rick, she pressed on, you're angry and rightfully so. But your anger cannot rebuild what was lost. It can only keep this community divided. He opened his mouth, but before he could respond, a voice spoke from the back, a familiar face, young but laden with wisdom. Mr. Rick, you loved Danny. We all did. But holding on to this hurt won't bring him back. It only burdens us. Sarah turned to see Jake, Danny's best friend, standing bravely at the edge of the room. His face was pale but determined, the tremor in his voice giving way to strength. We can't move forward if we keep looking back. At that, something in Rick's posture shifted. The fight simmered in his eyes, but so did fatigue, as if the ongoing battle was wearing him down. Maybe, he began, his voice choppy and unsure. Maybe it's time to think about what he needs now. The moment felt charged with possibility. A turn in the tide, a chance to break free from the shackles of grief and anger. Sarah's own heart fluttered with cautious hope, But doubt still clung to the edges of her optimism. Could this really be the start of healing? Would Rick choose connection over resentment? As fear and hope battled within, the air crackled with anticipation. The diner had transformed, with fragile ties being stretched and transformed. There was still a long road ahead, and the storm Rick had summoned hadn't fully passed. Rick, Sarah said softly, what will it take for you to see a way forward? The diner held its breath, caught in the moment. Would Rick embrace the path of understanding? Or would he retreat back into the shadows of anger? The question lingered, heavy and unresolved, as all eyes focused on him, waiting for an answer that could change everything. Silence hung in the air, thick and palpable. Rick's eyes flickered over the crowd, a battlefield of emotions warring within him. Tension clutched Sarah's chest as she held her breath, praying that he would find clarity in the turmoil. His jaw tightened, a battle of wills etched on his face. What do you want from me? He finally spat, frustration spilling over like boiling water. You think I don't want to move on? That I like feeling this way? No one said it would be easy, Sarah replied, her voice earnest. But facing the truth is the only way to heal. For all of us. Around the diner, murmurs grew softer, the weight of shared pain resonating in the room. People exchanged glances filled with empathy, a silent agreement forming. They want to change too. As Rick shifted his weight, his shoulders sagging slightly, something in the atmosphere shifted. The anger slipped from his voice, replaced by something more vulnerable. I just miss him. The admission felt like a breath of fresh air, breaking through the smog of resentment. Jake stepped closer, the words uncoiling from his heart. We all do, man. Danny was everything to us. But if we keep this anger, he's gone forever. We need to find a way to keep him alive in our memories, not in our hatred. Rick glanced at Jake, his eyes filling with unshed tears. The hardness in his expression cracked, revealing a mix of sorrow and longing. I don't know how to do that, how to not be angry. Maybe start by forgiving yourself, Sarah whispered, her own voice shaky with emotion. Felt bold but necessary. Forgive him too. The words hung and drifted like dandelion seeds in the wind, each one carrying a possibility. Sarah's heart raced, squeezing with hope. She saw Rick's brows furrow, a storm brewing behind his eyes as he wrestled with her suggestion. I don't, he began, but words failed him. Instead, he blinked against the emotional swell that threatened to break him. You want me to forgive the man who killed my brother? Just like that? No, Sarah said, rising on impulse. I want you to find peace. Not for him but for you. Holding on to rage, it's not just hurting him. It's hurting you too. A few patrons nodded this time, some wiping their tears discreetly. Think of Danny, Jake urged gently. Wouldn't he want this? He'd want us to remember him with laughter and love. Not this heaviness. Rick turned to the window, the reflection of the diner barely visible through his glassy gaze. Outside, the sky seemed a little brighter. The storm clouds were slowly dissipating. I can't promise I'll forgive him, he said finally, each word weighing heavily. That's okay, Sarah replied softly, her heart empathizing with his struggle. But what if you just took that first step? One thought, one decision at a time? An electric buzz filled the air, vibrant with potential. Faces around the diner softened as if a veil was pulled back, revealing unity beneath the fractures. Maybe Rick's voice rippled with uncertainty. He turned back to Sarah, a reluctant spark igniting in his eyes. Maybe I can start to try. A wave of relief washed over Sarah, a glimmer of triumph brightening the stays of the room. But then, as Rick spoke those tentative words, the bell above the diner door jingled. A figure stepped in, blocking the sunlight. The crowd quieted, and in an instant, the fragile atmosphere shifted back to uncertain tension. Sarah's heart dropped as she recognized the newcomer. Could this twist change everything again? Who were they to the strange story of healing and heartbreak? All eyes turned, the diner holding its breath once more, waiting for what this new arrival might bring. The door swung wide, and the figure stepped into the diner, silhouetted against the bright light outside. The chatter died down completely, and the air felt different, charged, alive with unspoken questions. Sarah's stomach twisted into knots as she recognized the face that had haunted her nightmares. Mike, the man responsible for Danny's death. His expression was a mix of regret and steely determination as he scanned the room, finally resting his gaze on Rick. Rick's face contorted, a storm of emotions brewing again at the sight of him. The hurt and pain spilled into the open like water from a cracked dam, ready to drown the last remnants of hope. "Rick," Mike said, his voice cracking, almost as if he expected a fist instead of words. He hesitated, as though searching for the right words to unravel a tapestry of sorrow. "I never meant for this to happen. I know I can't change the past. What I did." "Shut up," Rick shot back, his fists clenching at his sides. "You think you can just walk in here and what? Apologize? Does that fix anything?" The anger in the diner surged like a wave, rippling through the crowd. Some turned away, unable to watch, while others leaned in, captivated, thirsting for answers. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she stood frozen in place, torn between wanting to scream at Mike and needing to understand why he had come. "No, I'm not here to make excuses," Mike pleaded, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "I came to say I'm sorry. I've lived with this guilt every single day. I lost someone too. You have to believe me." Danny's name hung in the air, a tender echo that stirred the wounds of raw grief. The room felt heavier, sadness mingling with rage, each emotion battling for dominance. Rick's expression broke, shifting between anger and pain. "You think your words mean anything? Do you even understand what it's like to wake up every day knowing my brother isn't coming back?" The silence screamed around them, but Mike didn't back down. "I know. I don't expect your forgiveness, Rick. But I came to face you and say I'm sorry. It was an accident, a mistake that I can't take back. But you're right, holding on to this rage won't bring Danny back. If I could, the one thing I would do is go back and change it all." A different kind of silence settled in, one that hummed with tension yet hinted at something deeper, an opportunity for reckoning. Rick took a step back, conflict swirling in his heart. "You don't get to say that," he replied, voice quivering. "You don't get to come here and act like you understand what this has done to me." Suddenly, Sarah found her voice, stepping forward. "But Rick, maybe this is the moment. We need a moment to speak our truths, to push through the pain together." She looked at Mike, her heart open. "Maybe we need to consider what healing could look like, even in this darkness." The diners listened in disbelief, glimmers of hope mingling with mistrust. Could they dare to turn this moment into something more than a confrontation? Rick met Sarah's gaze, a flicker of hope emerging through his anger. "What do you want from me, Mike?" His tone softened, edged with vulnerability, as if in that question lay the path to something more significant, a form of closure. "I want you to know how sorry I am," Mike said, his voice steady yet raw. "But I can't change your pain. All I can do is promise to carry it with me." Tension twisted tight within Sarah's chest. Could forgiveness truly exist in such shattered circumstances? As she thought of the complex emotions swirling around them, she wondered if this conversation might unlock a way to healing for everyone. But just as the words hung in the air, the door creaked open again, and a new figure stepped inside, a familiar face that would shatter the fragile peace that had begun to form. Who was this new arrival, and what storm would they bring? Would it fracture the moment of healing that was so desperately needed? The new figure paused at the threshold, taking in the scene with wide eyes. It was Lisa, Danny's girlfriend. The color drained from her face as if she had seen a ghost. In that instant, the diner's atmosphere shifted once more, tension tightening around them like a noose. Rick's mouth dropped open. "Lisa," he whispered, disbelief coursing through him. Memories washed over him, the laughter they shared, the way she lit up every room like the sun. He felt the earth shift beneath him, confusion mixing with an ever-present pain. "Why are you here?" Anger and fear intermingled in Rick's voice, each word careful, measured. He didn't know if he wanted to comfort her or scream at her for entering this minefield. I heard," she stammered, her gaze darting from Rick to Mike, and then back to the ground. Her breath trembled as she stepped inside, the door swinging shut behind her. "I needed to know." Rick's heart pounded in his chest as Lisa approached, her eyes shining with a mix of sorrow and fury. "How can you stand here, Mike? After everything? After what you took away from us?" Mike's expression faltered, pain etching deep lines on his face. "Lisa, please, I never wanted this. I wish I could." Lisa interrupted him, the fire in her voice rising. "You wish you could what? Bring him back? Make it all disappear? You can't. You don't get to be here and act like you're sorry when that won't help any of us." Sarah felt the weight of Lisa's words, like a pebble dropped into a still lake, causing ripples of anguish. She could see the unsteady breaths, the flickers of hope and despair swirling in the room. The diners were engrossed, the silence so thick it felt oppressive. Danny was my everything, Lisa continued, her voice breaking. I thought about our future every single day. Now I'm just lost. Tears streamed down her face, and she wiped them with anger, but the pain still flowed from her. Rick stepped closer, his own heart aching. You don't have to face this alone, Lisa. We can figure this out together. The idea of handling their grief had never felt more essential. Together? She huffed, incredulous. We're all broken pieces. How can we be together when everyone is hurting? Sarah took a deep breath, stepping in the space between them, her thoughts racing. Maybe that's how we begin to heal, by acknowledging the ache together. It's messy, but it's real. Rick looked at Sarah, sensing the strength behind her words. Hope flickered like a candle in a storm, dim but still fighting. I'll never forget Danny, Mike finally said, his voice barely a whisper. And I'll carry the burden of this guilt with me until my last breath. But I want to help you all in any way I can. Lisa turned her gaze to Mike, anger shifting into something else. A glimmer of understanding? Maybe questioning? The crowd in the diner leaned closer, every eye locked on the unfolding confrontation. As emotions swirled, Sarah noticed a new tension forming. There was an unspoken question looming above them all, a question deeper than anger or pain. What happens when pain meets honesty, when grief meets hope? Before it could settle in, the diner door swung open again, and this time an unexpected figure walked in. The chatter resumed, hushed whispers replacing the silence. What would this intrusion mean for their fragile moment? Would it deepen their understanding? Or would it bring a new wave of chaos? The figure stepped into the diner, taking a moment to shake off the remnants of the cold night air. It was Jason, Danny's older brother, his usual confident swagger replaced by a heavy stillness. At first glance, the atmosphere shifted once more, like a cloud rolling in to blanket the sun. Everyone turned their attention to him. Rick felt his breath hitch. He hadn't seen Jason since the accident, and it weighed on him like a stone in his gut. What is he doing here? He thought, anxiety gnawing at him. Lisa's eyes widened as she took in the sight of her boyfriend's brother. Jason, her voice barely rose above a whisper, laced with disbelief and confusion. I came as soon as I heard, Jason said. His voice strained but steady, echoing off the diner's walls. He searched the room, meeting Rick's glance, then Lisa's, finally landing on Mike. What the hell happened? The weight of that question seemed to hang, an uninvited guest that settled in the silence. The air felt charged, electric with unresolved turmoil. Mike shifted uncomfortably, the flicker of shame and regret crossing his face. Jason, Mike started but stopped when Jason raised a hand, cutting him off. The rawness in his eyes mirrored the pain that filled the room. Just tell me what happened, Jason insisted, his voice thick with barely contained emotion. I need to know how my brother died. Lisa stepped forward, her fists clenched. You think that knowing will change anything? Danny is gone. How could any of this make sense? Jason took a step back, as if her words were a blow. I'm not here to blame anyone, he said, but his voice faltered. I want answers. Rick felt the tension spiral. They all needed answers, didn't they? He cleared his throat, the lump pressing against it unbearable. Jason, maybe we should sit down, talk it through. Jason shook his head. Frustration etched across his features. No. I can't just sit here and pretend everything is okay when it's not. My brother was killed. I can't just fade away into normalcy. The diners around them were now chattering softly, eyes darting between the four of them. It was a spectacle neither of them wanted to put on, but the pain was palpable, a live wire buzzing in the air. What do you want me to say, Jason? Mike finally burst out, the weight of grief pouring from him. I wish I could turn back time. I'd do anything to take it back. Anything? Jason shot back, the anger flaring in his voice. What does that even mean, Mike? Who are you fooling? Lisa took a breath, trying to clear the dark cloud that threatened to suffocate her. This isn't helping, she said softly. We're all just screaming in a void. We need to connect somehow. Jason looked at her, the flicker of uncertainty breaking through his fury. Connect? How do we do that? How can we bridge this gap when it feels like everything we had is shattered? The question hung heavy, each person grappling with their pain, their anger, and their longing for understanding. There was no easy answer, no way to make this right, but perhaps there was a way to take a step forward together. As uncertainty swirled around them, the door swung open again, this time wider, as if inviting more chaos. Sarah stood at the entrance, breathless. "Wait!" she shouted, eyes wide with realization. "You all need to hear this." What would Sarah reveal that could change everything? Would it bring clarity, or push them deeper into the turmoil? Sarah stood there, her chest heaving and hands trembling. The warmth of the diner felt like a distant memory, swallowed by the chill of the moment. She looked at all of them, Jason, Lisa, Mike, and Rick. The shock on their faces mirrored the storm swirling inside her, an urgency that could no longer be contained. "Danny, he reached out to me," she declared, her voice rising in pitch, urgent and almost frantic. "What?" Jason responded, disbelief and a flicker of hope mingling in his tone. "What do you mean?" Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose, her mind racing back to those early morning hours when the world felt crushed by silence. Before the accident, he had a strange feeling. "He told me to meet him. He said he wanted to talk, that there was something important we needed to discuss." The air thickened with tension, and Rick felt an electric pulse stitch through the group, connecting them in shared regret and loss. "Why didn't you say anything before?" he blurted out, frustration edging his words. "I didn't think it mattered. I thought it was just," Sarah hesitated, biting her lip as if she could swallow the truth. "I thought it was just Danny being Danny, you know? But now I wish I had gone." Lisa stepped closer, her voice trembling. "What was he so desperate to tell you?" Sarah's eyes glistened. The tears pooled and brimmed over, spilling down her cheeks. "He thought someone was after him. He felt like something was wrong. And he didn't know how to say it. He just wanted to make it right, to figure it out together." Jason pressed a hand to his forehead as if to stave off a migraine. "Someone was after him? Why didn't he come to me?" The words tore from his chest, raw and broken. "Maybe he didn't want to drag you into his fears," Sarah replied softly, attempting to cover the cruelty of their shared reality. "But I think he knew something was off. He wanted me to be there just in case." Rick's heart raced. So what if there was a reason, a real reason he was taken from us? He trembled at the thought but felt a flicker of resolve. If there's something we missed, something we can uncover, doesn't that matter? Jason's jaw clenched, the weight of grief mixing with determination as he stepped closer to Sarah. "Did he say anything else? Anything at all that could help us? We have to know what he was trying to tell you." As the diner lay wrapped in chilling silence, Sarah wiped her tears, steadied her voice and said, "He mentioned a name, but I didn't think it meant anything at the time. It was going to sound crazy." "Name? What name?" Mike asked, brows knitted together. With a deep breath, Sarah spoke the name, one that hung in the air like an omen. "Avery." The room plunged into a silence thicker than before. Jason's eyes widened, fear mingling with recognition. "Avery," he whispered, an accusing edge slicing through the bleak atmosphere. "Why does that name feel so familiar?" Rick exchanged a troubled look with Lisa and Mike. There were layers to this tragedy, more than they had ever suspected, lurking beneath the surface. "What do you know about Avery?" Rick demanded, every ounce of attention directed at Jason, who appeared lost in thought. As they awaited an answer, a palpable sense of urgency filled the diner. Their painful past was colliding violently with the promise of new revelations. The tension twisted tighter, leaving them all on the edge of the unknown. What dark truth lay buried beneath Danny's final moments? Would unraveling this name take them deeper into the heart of the storm? Jason shook himself free from his thoughts, looking fiercely determined now. Avery, he used to roll with the wrong crowd. People whispered about him. He was never a good guy, and then he just disappeared. The revelation hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. The expression on Mike's face transformed from worry to fear. Did Danny say anything else? Did he mention wanting to meet Avery? Maybe he was in trouble. "That's what I'm saying," Jason replied, fists clenching. Danny felt something was wrong. He thought it was his fault dealing with this Avery guy. Around the diner, the tension tightened like a noose as the reality of their situation set in. Rick's heart raced, and he felt a rush of anger at the thought that they might have misunderstood everything. If Danny was involved with him and then suddenly it was no accident, it was planned? Lisa stepped forward, her voice a mixture of fear and strength. What if Avery hurt him to protect himself? What if that's why Danny wanted to talk? The patrons of the diner exchanged glances, the weight of the truth dawning on them. Mrs. Jenkins, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. We need to investigate this, work together. If Avery's involvement is true, we can't let it go. We owe it to Danny. A wave of agreement washed through the crowd as people nodded. Sarah felt a surge of hope flutter in her chest. The support of the community felt like a warm embrace, shining a light into the darkness of their confusion. Jason stepped closer to the group, his resolve hardening. We can't let fear hold us back. If Danny was trying to warn us, we owe it to him to find out the truth. Rick, getting drawn into the energy of the moment, nodded fiercely. Let us gather everything. Talk to anyone who might know about Avery, find out what we can dig up. As the diner buzzed with an electric sense of purpose, Sarah looked around, seeing faces that had once been filled with anger now igniting with determination. The murmur of voices stirred courage and resolve, knitting the community together in a shared mission. Let us split up and gather information, Lisa suggested, eyes bright. Meet back at the diner and share what we learned. Agreed, Jason replied, heart pounding with both dread and excitement. This is the first step. We take control of this situation together. With that, everyone spilled out of the diner, rushing to be part of a larger search for answers that would honor Danny's memory. As Sarah stepped outside, catching the chilly air in her lungs, she couldn't help but feel the shift. Hope was beginning to unfurl like spring flowers breaking through the winter frost. The community a patchwork of broken hearts, a unified force now rising to reclaim their narrative. Together, she whispered to herself, we can find the truth. Days turned into weeks as they combed through leads, developed connections, and began uncovering the dark web tied to Avery's past. They interviewed people, pieced together stories, and slowly the specter of the man began to reveal itself through the shroud of whispers. The truth lay before them, sharp and undeniable. Then came the day the clouds parted for good. They had a meeting scheduled with a former acquaintance of Avery's, and Sarah felt the weight of anticipation on her shoulders. The diner had become a headquarters, a symbol of their resolve. When the day arrived, the air crackled with energy. They were all in the diner. The usual smell of fresh coffee intertwined with the tangible hope that filled the room. Sarah stood in front of the group, her heart racing. We're here for Danny, she said, scanning the determined faces. And we're here for each other. Whatever comes next, it's ours to face together. What happened next was a whirlwind, a conversation that revealed much more than they anticipated. It was the type of reckoning that forced them all to confront the ghosts of the past. Avery had been a dark presence, but through their strength, they turned fear into resolve. As the truth surfaced, they learned that Danny wasn't just another victim. He was a hero, caught in a storm of darkness that they could now illuminate together. It was a new dawn for their community, forged from pain and hope. Sarah looked around at her friends and neighbors, and the tears spilled down her cheeks, reflecting the weight lifted from her heart. Remember, this community is worth fighting for, she said, directing her gaze at all of them. Together we will make sure Danny's story is one of strength, not sorrow. We'll stand for him and for ourselves. As they rallied, each member felt a private transformation. Forgiveness replaced resentment, and hope ignited like wildfire. This would be their legacy, woven with love and resilience. Their journey had taught them that in the face of adversity, a community could rise, heal, and flourish. They were no longer pieces fluttering in the wind. They were a united front, active measure shackled by shared stories of loss and redemption. Through love, they found a way to honor those they lost while also fortifying the ties that bound them. From that moment on, Sarah knew that hope lived not in the absence of struggle, but rather through facing it head-on. As they celebrated their victories together, the light of a bright future bathed the Maplewood diner, filling it with laughter, memories, and above all love. It was a story not finished, but now marked by incredible transformation and unity. It was a lesson for all. Every heartfelt connection made their community stronger, forming a bond that no shadow could eclipse. Now, dear friends, listen closely. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this community thriving. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending, because your voices matter. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Get involved and be part of this incredible journey. True fans know how important it is to uplift our community through these simple actions. Let us keep spreading the love.